Connecticut began taking steps toward legalizing sports betting Wednesday, but first the state must reach an agreement with its two Indian tribes, who believe they have the exclusive right to the new form of gambling. Governor Dannel P. Malloy told legislative leaders he will be negotiating a deal with the tribes, but the state legislature also needs to act to ratify Malloy's deal and legalize sports betting in Connecticut. Since Malloy and legislators are cautious about making changes to the existing compacts with the Mashantucket, Pequot, and Mohegan tribes, they are talking about crafting a new compact or memorandum of understanding that would move the process faster. Lawmakers do not want to jeopardize $273 million that the state receives in the current fiscal year from the tribes under a slot machine revenue-sharing agreement that has been in place for more than 2 decades. This is a separate MO, unrelated to the other ones, said Senate Republican leader Elaine Fasano of North Haven. The governor's deal has to be reflected in our legislation because whether it's exclusive or not, exclusive impacts how we write the bill, Senate President Pro Tem Martin Looney, a New Haven Democrat, said. The Attorney General's office is of the opinion that the MO or compact are modified. Compact, however it's characterized, would need to be submitted to the BIA. Looney was referring to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the federal agency that has not yet granted final approval of a joint casino in East Windsor that would be constructed by the Mashantucket, Pequot, and Mohegan tribes. Malloy said negotiations with the tribes will begin soon. We probably have a more complicated issue in Connecticut, given the unique nature of our compacts with the two tribal nations who have casinos in our state, Malloy said after the meeting with legislative leaders. We have a little catch-up to do with some of our neighboring states with respect with their ability to move into these arenas more rapidly than we are, regarding whether the tribes have a strong case for saying they should have exclusive rights on sports betting. Malloy said, "I won't give away my negotiating strategy." The tribes said Wednesday they were eager to meet with Malloy and legislators. "We look forward to productive discussions with the governor and legislative leadership," said Lori Potter, a spokeswoman for the Mashantucket Pequots. "Working together, we can find a sensible solution that puts Connecticut's best interests first," Charles Bunnell, a spokesman for the Mohegans, said. "We appreciate the governor's respect for the agreements in place and his willingness to work together with all parties to find the best path forward." The Mohegan Tribal Council shares that commitment. Many questions remained unanswered, including where sports betting would be legal. Top legislative leaders agreed that it would be legal at the casinos, but they were unsure whether gamblers could place bets, for example, at every location where they can currently purchase a lottery ticket. Legislators were also unsure if sports betting would follow the current Keno model. When the state legislature legalized Keno, they cut a deal with the tribes that allows the casinos to receive 25% of the state's gross operating revenue from the lottery game. In other words, the state currently pays millions of dollars each year to the tribes because the tribes believed they had the exclusive rights to Keno. The total sent by the state to the tribes from Keno was $6.5 million last year and $5.6 million so far in the current fiscal year. While estimates have varied, some legislators say the state could receive $40 million to $80 million annually from sports betting. The discussions have started because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled recently that states have the right to regulate sports betting. Lawmakers are unsure exactly when sports betting will begin in Connecticut, but are planning to hold a special legislative session this summer, possibly in mid-July, to adopt regulations. "We can move pretty quick when it's important," said House Speaker Joe Arasimovich of Berlin. Having this meeting today was a great first step. Lawmakers have not yet decided on whether to impose a so-called integrity fee, which would allow professional sports leagues to receive 0.25% of the total money bet. Another unanswered question is how the state could control sports betting for underage gamblers, particularly if sports betting was allowed online or through smartphone apps. I'm not sure that some 12-year-old kid hasn't purchased a lotto ticket in the past in Connecticut, either, Malloy said in response to the current. Malloy said gambling, both legal and illegal, is already widespread in Connecticut. There are sites that people place bets with on an out-nation basis. That's reality, Malloy said. And they also place bets, using telephones and the like, illegally, with people on the corner. I think this is about the regulation of an industry which is growing rapidly. Caption: Ariella Botts, 5, of East Hartford, was born with a severe muscular disorder called Malloy myopathy that requires round-the-clock care from a visiting nurse. Her mother, Rachel, talks about how the service is threatened by a state cutback that would lower the reimbursement from Medicaid. Without the visiting nurses, like Livia Brown, seen caring for Ariella, she would be in a medical foster home or a hospital or long-term care facility, probably at higher cost. Ariella Botts, 5, of East Hartford, was born with a severe muscular disorder called Malloy myopathy that requires round-the-clock care from a visiting nurse. Her mother, Rachel, talks about how the service is threatened by a state cutback that would lower the reimbursement from Medicaid. Without the visiting nurses, like Livia Brown, seen caring for Ariella, she would be in a medical foster home or a hospital or long-term care facility, probably at higher cost. Caption: After 24 years in the U.S., Franklin and Joconda Ramos must decide between returning to Ecuador or seeking sanctuary in Connecticut. Here, Franklin Ramos describes a previous instance of detainment based on his immigration status. After 24 years in the U.S., Franklin and Joconda Ramos must decide between returning to Ecuador or seeking sanctuary in Connecticut. Here, Franklin Ramos describes a previous instance of detainment based on his immigration status. Caption: Betsy Guerra, executive director of COST, talks about her meeting with Dannel Malloy to discuss budget burdens for municipalities. Betsy Guerra, executive director of COST, talks about her meeting with Dannel Malloy to discuss budget burdens for municipalities. Caption: Connecticut Attorney General George Jepsen has filed or joined a growing number of lawsuits against the Trump administration. Connecticut Attorney General George Jepsen has filed or joined a growing number of lawsuits against the Trump administration. Caption: President Donald Trump is lashing out at Sen. Richard Blumenthal, calling him a phony Vietnam con artist, shortly after the Democratic lawmaker said the investigation into Russian meddling in the election and possible collusion by the Trump campaign must be pursued. August 7, 2017. Sign up for our free video newsletter here. http://bit.ly/2n6vkpr closing parenthesis. President Donald Trump is lashing out at Sen. Richard Blumenthal, calling him a phony Vietnam con artist, shortly after the Democratic lawmaker said the investigation into Russian meddling in the election and possible collusion by the Trump campaign must be pursued. August 7, 2017. Sign up for our free video newsletter here. http://bit.ly/2n6vkpr closing parenthesis. Subscribe and listen to the Capital Watch podcast iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn.